What's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl. We're back after the shortlist, after a little bit of not doing any predictions, and today we're going to go over our Best Picture update because a lot has happened. In the meantime, we've had Globes, we've had so many regional critics. There's new things happen in the race each and every day, and that's why we're touching on the shortlist as well. We have all those categories. We know what the possible nominees could be. Now we just got to pick out which ones will it be.
Yes, so today's a two-pronged video. We talk about those texts, those below the lines, and we talk about Best Picture because, as always, things are shifting. We take things into consideration. This is our first time talking, I think, post Critics' Choice, so we get to really talk now that things are shaping up. I'm noticing here you have something a little unique. You've got a different movie at number one than I do. What's your deal with Conclave being your Best Picture winner?
That's a great question because Best Picture, I think for the first time since we've started this channel, is an actual debate this far into the season. You go back to last year, we had Oppenheimer, Steamroll. The year before that was Everything Ever All at Once, which was another steamroll, even though some people were downing at this time of the year, which I was. So this year, I mean, I get Anora is the front runner, but at least to me, places I would need to see it succeed or overperform, it's kind of performing normal to track. We both talked about in our Globes video, we expect that comedy musical to go somewhere else. I personally think SAG Ensemble is going somewhere else. I don't think PGA is going to Anora. I don't think BAFTA is going to Anora. So can Anora really win Best Picture if it's not winning any of the major precursors besides potentially CCA? So that's where I'm kind of looking to other possible contenders. And honestly, at this point in the race, I think there's 6 movies that have a decent path. Some are a lot smaller than others to Best Picture. Sing Sing relies through SAG. The Brutalist is through BAFTA. Wicked is through PGA. Amelia Perez, we talked about the Golden Globe. And that's why I'm landing with Conclave, because Conclave, at least to me, seems like it could do well at all of those places, not just really cement itself at one. We both have it winning the Golden Globe drama. I could see it being a potential spoiler for SAG Ensemble. BAFTA, this screams a BAFTA winner. And then PGA, I don't expect it to win there, but it could very well end up being top 5 or top 3 at PGA when we get further in the race. So it's one I'm not overtly confident about, but I have less confidence in Nora than I did before. So to spice things up a little bit, I am picking a new number one, but I'm totally ready for the next time we do a Best Picture update to have a completely new number one. Maybe that's back to Anora, maybe that's Wicked, maybe it's something completely else.
That is really interesting, and I agree with you. Conclave, I think, is going to perform really well everywhere. The issue is passion with it. It doesn't feel like a movie that's going to have people ferociously going for it. It's a movie that everyone goes, yeah, it's good, but very few people, I think, are going to be excited to put it at their number one slot. Yes, it's widely likable, will perform well on a preferential ballot, but it's going to perform well in the sense that it's going to get a lot of 3s, 4s, and 5 votes rather than number 1s or number 2s, which is where I think Anora and The Brutalist and Amelia Perez and Wicked are all going to perform well. Let's talk about Sing Sing, because this is one that is not even safe for a nomination anymore. The Golden Globes left it out of Picture and Clarence Macklin. It's likely not going to make it into the BAFTAs. And when we think about SAG, I think it's actually quite vulnerable there. I'm not considering it to be a contender unless it has a massive resurgence once it gets the Best Picture nomination. But that's a crazy thing to predict.
I would totally agree, and that's why I have that my last one that has a percentage chance. I put it all the way down like 5 or less. If it does have that massive resurgence, it could be something like Coda where it shocks at PGA, but that's not anything I'm predicting at the moment. And I would agree it's much more closer to missing Best Picture than winning Best Picture, but it'd be the tail end of that list of films I could see have a wild avenue to find the win at the end of the day.
I would agree with you on that, and I think it's an interesting difference we can see between our lists, where I have it very much in terms of getting the nomination. I would say that Sing Sing is not one of the locked 7, potentially even 8, because at this point I would say Anora, Amelia Perez, Conclave, The Brutalist, Wicked, Dune, A Complete Unknown, and possibly Nickel Boys, I would consider those all to be quite safe in terms of getting the Best Picture nomination. Nickel Boys, maybe a little bit less so. There is a world where that gets left out in the shuffle. Meanwhile, even though I do see that there is a potential path for a Sing Sing victory, I've got it all the way down at my number 9 because I think it could also miss.
And then for the rest of the potential win contenders, as I said before, I really do see a path for everything I currently have in my top 6, even if I think at the end of the day, some of these films a little bit lower on my list will be stronger, as you're saying, for a nomination. Dune Part 2, we talked about the Globes a little bit. Obviously, Denis' path, it seems dead already, so I will hold my L for that one of half hope taking, half hoping that the Academy would kind of course correct there. But the film I still believe is safe for Best Picture. A Complete Unknown, it's doing exactly what I thought. Never going super high in the race, but it's comfortably in there for the Best Picture nomination. And then I would have Nickel Boys as a safe nomination as well at my 9 slot. It's hitting everything so far. In the places where maybe it doesn't receive the mass love for, they're still finding a way for it to get into Best Picture like the Golden Globes. So honestly, at this point in the race, December 19th, I think that we have a pretty safe, pretty solid top 9. And it's that number 10 slot that's really interesting to me because currently I can see 5 films compete for this slot, some a lot stronger than others. Because obviously at the top tier of this, we have Substance, we have Real Pain. I think these two seem the most likely on the table, but I wouldn't count out Challengers, Nosferatu, September 5. Obviously, some have hit already at major Best Picture nominations, but others are going to get stronger above the line nomination support or a bunch of text, at least for me at this moment. And I'm probably going to come back around on this and not be in support for this, but I do have Substance as my number 10.
Just to go back a little bit to A Complete Unknown, I've never understood why people are doubting it. It just needed to be okay and it would get in. It is the baitiest shit that happens every single year, and it feels to me like denying Maestro last year. Even though people weren't overly hot on Maestro, it happened anyways. And A Complete Unknown is exactly the same. It's a movie about someone that the Academy is familiar with and loves. That's enough. It's got a good performance. It's in. It's safe. I agree with you. The 10 slot is between A Real Pain and The Substance right now. The question that I have is, do we have the AFI top 10 or do we have the Critics' Choice top 10? For a while, I've been going back and forth on it. I don't believe that strongly in A Real Pain. I love The Substance, but I've struggled to believe in it because it's such a weird movie, but it performed extremely well, exceedingly well at the Golden Globes. And at the Critics' Choice, did really, really well, except missing a bunch of techs that I think it should have gotten. With the shortlists, I have a lot of reason to doubt The Substance. If it didn't make it into sound, if it didn't make it into VFX, if it didn't make it into score, all of those things are showing that maybe the industry is not as into this movie as broadcast critics, like Critics' Choice Awards, like the Golden Globes. Something isn't clicking here as like the industry will undeniably go for this. There is still very much a world where the industry does not give a shit. At this point, I think The Substance is makeup, screenplay, and acting. And it's a big question to me right now. Is it more and quality, or is it just more? I'm watching out for the SAG, and to me, that final slot in Best Picture between A Real Pain and The Substance, it's going to come down to the PGA. It's going to come down to DGA. If DGA goes Coralie Farja, which I don't think they will, Substance is undeniable. I don't expect them to do that, though. The real make or break is PGA. If Substance is in PGA, I will put it in Best Picture. If Substance misses PGA, then there's no chance. And in terms of the other contenders here, I don't see what else could break in outside of this top 11. Challengers did not perform as well as it should have at the Critics' Choice Awards. Seed of the Sacred Fig and All We Imagine Is Light need a big BAFTA performance that I doubt either of them will get. And September 5 is a journalist movie. Performing well with the Critics' Choice Awards, performing well with the Golden Globes, that means nothing to me. I need to see this, again, make a guild. And the fact that it could not even make the guild lineup for editing at the ACE Eddie Awards, and Civil War and Furiosa made it over September 5, that is something saying to me, maybe the industry does not care, and this was something inflated by journalists who liked a movie about journalism.
For The Substance, we'll talk a little bit more about it when we get to the short list. It's missing out on a lot of these places, but as you said, its path, I don't think it has a shot at all for DGA. They love their American homegrown directors. Substance doesn't have that. I think they'll go elsewhere for their lineup, but I do think, like you said, PGA will be our determining factor. Do they go Real Pain for the 10th slot? Do they go substance for the 10th slot? Or that's where I include challengers Nosferatu and September 5. I could see those being potential spoilers, but I'm not going out of my way to predict them at this moment because I think each of these films has a direct avenue for this 10th slot. Substance, it is going to be doing well with the BAFTAs. A Real Pain is just surviving because all these other films can only really go down. They can't really come up as much.
But will the Substance do well at the BAFTAs? That's something that I think a lot of people are taking for granted. I feel like we're jumping to conclusions really quickly off of the Golden Globes and off the Critics' Choice, despite the fact that their voter overlap is 0. And yes, the Substance is undeniably a part of the conversation. We just can't make any certain statements at this point because we have not seen the industry weigh in outside of the ACE Eddie Awards.
In terms of Real Pain getting into Best Picture, we would have liked to see Jesse Eisenberg overperform at CCA. He did not, and I don't think he's getting it at SAG. He's definitely not getting it at BAFTA. So like that would be what I would need to see for Real Pain to take it seriously in Best Picture, because currently it's Culkin, it's screenplay, it's picture. Sure, that's a package. It's just not a very strong one because you look at some of the other contenders. You have challengers, which could find its way into screenplay. It is competing in editing. I don't know if it would be top 5 at the end of the day, but it's looking like even if it's not in Best Picture, it can pull a Tick Tick Boom and find its way inside of that category, at least with the support so far into the season. And then we have a film like Nosferatu, which we'll talk again when we get to the shortlist section. It is showing up pretty much across the board. It's showing out with the guild so far, with the critics, and it'll just be interesting to see how does this film perform throughout award season. Is it solely just going to be text, or can it really break into the Best Picture lab anywhere? Because I'm just shocked that AFI, Critics' Choice, all these people we've heard through so far haven't put challengers, haven't put Nosferatu in their Best Picture lineup.
Question for you. If A Real Pain misses Best Picture, do you still think that Culkin can win Best Supporting Actor?
See, I still don't have Culkin as my winner, even when I did put A Real Pain in the picture for a little bit. And I know you can call Morb, you can say it's dumb, he's looking like he's going to sweep, but at least to me, if he's going to sweep, his film probably would have got in at CCA Best Picture. So at least to me, I think CCA is where it may divert a little bit. I think maybe he takes home the Globe. Those two will really set the course of the season. If he wins both of those, he's just going to sweep. If he loses one of those, obviously he won't sweep, but he could still win the Oscar. But if he loses both of those, I think that we may be looking at someone else who could go on to sweep, or we could have a fun season where each awards body has a new winner, which would be the best outcome.
I don't think that's how we're gearing up for, especially with the way that he's sweeping critics groups. He's just a sweeper. He's Divine Joy Randolph. Dread it, run from it, it's inevitable, it's coming. Unfortunately, neither of us are huge fans. I mean, I think we both think he's good. We're just kind of like, why is that a sweeper? It's just Kieran Culkin.
And I guess to get some hate in the comments here from people who have seen The Brutalist, feel like Guy Pearce is doing that performance just a lot better and with more layers and with more dynamics to it, to like what you just said. Kieran Culkin's kind of just hiding Kieran Culkin.
I mean, Clarence Macklin is my ideal, but after missing the Golden Globe, I don't see an avenue.
And I guess to me, that is where maybe CCA or somewhere else does throw a curveball. Maybe it's Macklin. Maybe they go with someone else that they've been saying all along is going to win the Oscar, like Denzel, where they can just do some crazy stuff. Or if Guy Pearce is real and The Brutalist could be a sweeper, I think he could pop his head up here, but if he doesn't win at either of these places, I don't think the BAFTA would be in his cards.
So let's move on to these shortlisted categories. Now, I will also say we will not be talking about international or documentary feature today, and we'll only briefly touch on the shorts because we have different videos about those categories. So stay tuned for those. We're exclusively talking about the tech and crafts categories with Shortlist today. So first off, let's talk about Best Original Score. I'm feeling like challengers might be pulling a Soul, where it's just winning. Even though it might not be in a Best Picture player, it's music that people like enough that it can pull it off at the end of the day. I think it might be winning the Golden Globe, Critics' Choice, and at that point, those are really the score precursors. BAFTA could go Conclave or The Brutalist, but I think I would stick with the Globe Critics' Choice winner.
This has been a hope prediction for me all season of wanting challengers to be in the Oscar conversation, and score was always its best path. So I can totally see that outcome happening. But I think on the flip side, if challengers' love for Above the Line doesn't really continue throughout the rest of award season, we could see this score kind of play like Babylon, which is a film that had a lot more toxic word of mouth around it, but is a score that most people people were consensus upon, hey, this is going to sweep regardless of the film's performance in award season, and it won some of their early precursors, but when we got to BAFTA, when we got to the Oscar, it fell off for a film that was just hitting at the perfect time. Maybe that's Emilia Perez, maybe that's The Brutalist, maybe that's Conclave, but for now at least, until something else pokes its head up for a win at one of these major televised award shows, I'm going to stick with challengers.
That's a really good comparison too. I hadn't thought of Babylon as a sort of a challengers comparison there, but you are definitely right about that. I just struggle with the others that I could see as winners here. I mean, Conclave doesn't really have a memorable theme. It's solid music, but there's nothing that feels hummable. Brutalist is extremely hummable, but the thing is that a lot of the score is a bit alienating. It's got that horn theme, that do-do-do-do, but then most of it is very rhythmic. It's, in my opinion, by far the best score of the year, but it doesn't feel like the type of thing that wins. It's giving me flashbacks to Phantom Thread. It's giving me flashbacks to If Beale Street Could Talk, films that lost to much more upbeat, much more modern sounds, which is what Challengers has. And Emilia Perez, it's very quiet in terms of its score. Unless people think that they're voting for the songs as well, the score isn't doing a whole lot. I think it's really well done. I love the way that they blend together digital sounds with the sounds of voices. They use voice as an instrument quite a lot through the score, almost like using auto-tune to distort and twist voices. Really cool stuff.
I think the fun thing for the score category, at least this year, is they have 20 nominees, at least on the shortlist here, which is so many. And I think the big thing here is really, what is that fifth slot? I think most people are in agreement that top four, maybe they have different winners, but those are the top four. And this fifth slot's where stuff is wide open. There's some people who have Wild Robot. My big case for that is if Spider-Verse couldn't get in last year, if Boy and the Heron couldn't get in last year, that were stronger from people who may be a little bit more well-known, why would Wild Robot get in this year? The big thing for Wild Robot going for it so far is it's been getting in everywhere, and there's no real direct animation competitor. Because like last year, maybe if it was just Daniel Pemberton for Across the Spider-Verse, maybe it would have got in. If it was just the Boy and the Heron score, maybe that would have got in. But this year, it's Wild Robot, and there is no other real contender. Sure, Inside Out 2 is here on the short list, but that one's not real for a nomination.
I mean, I don't think that we can chalk up Spider-Verse and Boy and the Heron missing to being animated. 2021, we saw Encanto get on the list. Soul was a sweeper. I don't think it has anything to do with being animated as much as it has to do with it being a club. Unfortunately, it's a club, and they let people in that they want into the club unless it's a completely undeniable film. There's some gatekeeping that happens here. Despite the fact that Chris Bowers, who did the score for The Wild Robot, he has not had a music nomination at the Academy. He did win Best Documentary Short, so he is in the Academy's club. He is a wildly respected musician, at the same level, I would say, as like John Batiste, for example, who did miss the shortlist for Saturday Night. That's crazy. But to me, The Wild Robot feels like the easiest one to cut of the films that are making score at Golden Globes, at Critics' Choice, that are making it all over the place. Something's just telling me that The Wild Robot might not make it in the end. I have The Room Next Door because I do think Alberto Iglesias, who does all of the scores for Pedro Almodovar's movies, he's in the club. He got in with Parallel Mothers, and I think his work here is better than what he did with Parallel Mothers. I could absolutely see this, but I would want to see it show up at BAFTA.
I think that would be a totally deserved nomination. I love the score to The Room Next Door, but at least for me, if that score was real, it was going to show up at the Globes in a lineup of 6, which it could not do there. So that's why I currently have on the outside looking in. Wicked is another score that I could see hitting at the right time, but again, it missed the Globe. Is it really going to get any other major precursor before we hit the end of the season? And that's why I have, which again is a score that missed the Globe, but is one I think is going to hit at the right time. It's performing well with some critics groups out there. That's Nosferatu's score. Just saw the film last night. The score is a very pivotal part. Just looking at some of the other top contenders here, it's just the one that makes the most sense without it having any major red flag against it. Wild Robot has everything that you just said. The Room Next Door is something that probably should have made the Globe. I could be mistaken, but I think that Parallel Mothers score did make the Globe before its eventual Oscar nomination.
One thing I'll say about Wicked is a big question for me is, what are they considering score? What is considered pre-existing? And how is it eligible? Because I swear every single theme used in the movie is scoring that's in the Broadway show or is based on motifs and themes that are in the songs. And this is an interesting one because if they don't gatekeep it out of the category, if they let it into the top 5, I could easily see less informed voters saying, I love the music in Wicked, let's give it the win. Because the score is great, but it's not written for the movie. The score is written for the Broadway show. So I'm just confused as, like, what are they considering score?
That is a great question. I listened to some of the score the other day, and like you said, it is carrying over themes from the show as well as from the actual songs, and they're just more fleshed out versions. But I mean, if the score category was cool, you have the opportunity to do the best thing the Academy has done all season long, Horizon Chapter 1. It's right here. It made the shortlist. Give it the score nomination.
It's totally in the realm of possibility that makes it. I've heard nothing but good things about the score, even from people that hate the movie, and it's picked up some industry love as well. I would also throw out that Young Woman in the Sea, I think, is very possible to be a surprise nomination at the very end. I haven't seen the movie. I can't speak to the music whatsoever, but it just feels like the type of thing. It feels right to me. I would not be overly shocked if I saw this pop up.
And I guess the only other score I really want to give a shout out to as a potential maybe spoiler is Hans Zimmer's work in Blitz. It's a score I'm not really a huge fan of, but he is Hans Zimmer. He's missing out for Dune Part 2. Maybe there's an avenue for some sort of discussion to start there. It's a potential slot for the BAFTA if you're still a believer that Blitz will overperform there, which I'm not. But it's one that I could see cement itself into this top 10 type race the further we get into the year. But at least for me, that top 4 feels great. And then between Wild Robot, Nosferatu, Room Next Door, Wicked, one of those will probably be our 5th.
Let's talk about this, though. Blitz did really well on these shortlists. And I think at this point, it's one of the only things that I could see pull in All Quiet on the Western Front, where it hasn't shown up anywhere yet, and it now pops up. At this point in 2022, All Quiet on the Western Front, the only thing it had going for it was its few shortlist mentions. Nothing else. So at this point, Blitz really is one of the only films that could have a big surge.
For me, I think it will more be akin to those films that always get all the shortlist mentions and nothing comes out of them. I still currently have Blitz blanking at the Oscars, but it could come around. Like you just mentioned, it hit every shortlist it theoretically could have, maybe outside of makeup.
VFX could have happened. I'd say makeup I wouldn't count Blitz for, but VFX could have been a thing, and they did skip it there.
Well, that's going to move us over to Best Original Song, where we have 15 shortlisted nominees, and I think some major stuff did miss the shortlist. At least to me, the Miley Cyrus song from The Last Showgirl was one I was heavily considering for my top 5, especially after getting into the Globe. It did well at some of the song precursors in the guilds. Does not make the shortlist here. It opens up a brand new 5th slot in the category.
It's one of those prototypical songs that makes it at those early nominations because they would love to have Miley Cyrus attend their ceremony, and then it just doesn't make it anywhere else. So to me, that was never real. But where I'm at right now is the 2 Emilia Perez songs, and I'm yet to land on which one is the winner. I really think that there's a shot Mi Camino ends up being the one that comes out on top. Even though El Mal is used much more interestingly in the movie, everyone that I've talked to and shown the songs to goes, Mi Camino's the better song. But El Mal has the better scene. So the question is it RRR? Is it Natu Natu, where the scene is so good that the song has to win and there's no other choice? I don't know. I'm leaning El Mal for the win, but Mi Camino could take it. I was also really surprised. This is the first time that I think Diane Warren has deserved a nomination in quite some time. The Journey is a good song. I'm happy for The Journey being in the top 5. So that's a lock because Diane Warren. I've got the last 2 slots as Forbidden Road from Better Man, which is another one that I think is one of the best songs in the category, and Compress Repress from Challengers because it's made it in everywhere. And if I'm considering the Challengers score to be a winner, I think it would make sense for it to get a song nomination as well. That is leaving out Kiss the Sky, which has made quite a few nominations. I kind of just morally have to leave it off the list in terms of like being true to myself and not liking that song. I've got to leave it off the list, but it's quite close for me because of how well it's performed.
Yeah, I have the same exact top 5 as you. I have both Emilia Perez songs. Currently, El Mal is my frontrunner, and I will keep that until it loses something to Mi Camino. If it loses the Globe, immediately switch. I noticed, and I brought up to you in one of our earlier prediction videos, how Netflix, at least on the FYC vinyl, has Mi Camino as their one. So maybe they've heard similar things to you, but we'll have to see see which one ends up working the further we get into award season. For the rest of this category, the challenger song, I think of the scores coming along, it kind of has to here, and I kind of feel the same way about Wild Robot. If you have the score in, you should have the song in. If you have the score out, you should have the song out, and that's what I currently have. But I could easily see them both kind of sneak their way into each category. I think the other one would be the Elton John Never Too Late song. It's a wild one to even make the shortlist, but the fact that it made the shortlist means they're at least listening to it. It's Elton John, he's a previous winner, and it kind of checks off those boxes of what we just said before, and while it's from a documentary, it could maybe shock as the 5th slot, but to me, it's those 7. Sure, Piece by Pharrell is in the convo. Harper and Will Go West from Will and Harper, but I don't really buy those anymore.
The Elton John one, I'm not buying it because no one cared about the movie. They just gave him a win a few years ago. I don't think it's like the John Batiste American Symphony track last year. I'm much more interested in looking at a spoiler like a Bird from Sing Sing, which we've seen for the past few years, a trend where a song that has not gotten precursor nominations but is in a Best Picture nominee ends up sliding into the final lineup. Like last year, the Killers of the Flower Moon song, or the year before with Everything Ever All at Once. Now the question is, can Sing Sing at its state in the race right now, not being a top 5, being vulnerable to miss the nomination, can it still make that nomination? Also, Out of Oklahoma, great track. I think the Grammy attention that it's gotten and the fact that some of the Grammy voters are the ones who are in the music branch of the Academy, that could help. In terms of Piece by Piece, I feel like missing the Globe, missing the Critics' Choice is making me feel like Piece by Piece is just a write-off. I'm not expecting this to be big. Now that said, I could see, if we go back to what I was saying last time, and Blitz is performing bigger at BAFTA, Winter Coat could be a track that just slides in, like I was saying with Sing Sing. And I don't want to discount the possibility of a spoiler from Kneecap, because what a cool nomination that would be. I don't think they'll do it. They're not big rap fans, but how cool would it be?
I guess just to touch on one of those real quick would be Like a Bird from Sing Sing. I guess more so than the comparisons to like the track from Everything Everywhere or Kills of the Flower Moon. I see this more like the track from Past Lives or the track from Parasite that is getting buzz because of the film it's attached to, but people aren't really remembering the song as much, and the song doesn't end up happening for a nomination. Because at least for Kills of the Flower Moon, that song's path to the nomination was because of how original and how distinctive that song was. And I think the same thing could be extended to Everything Ever All at Once song because of just how different it sounded from the rest. While I like Sing Sing, Like a Bird sounds like any other ending outro type credit song as the rest of them, and that's why I'm leaning more towards the 7 I have. But I do agree, Piece by Piece is one that originally seemed so strong for a nomination, and we've just seen it fizzle out the longer we get into award season.
I agree with you, but that said, this year kind of sucks, and I think that the Past Lives song could have made it into this lineup. I think the Parasite song could have made it into this lineup. This is not a strong list of contenders. I was in the car with my mom. She was asking what are all of the songs that are eligible for the Oscar this year, and I was showing her them, and song after song she was like, this isn't for me.
I guess I'll fight back a little bit. I think both Amelia Perez songs would be pretty good winners. I think they both fit what I always talk about in this category of the perfect song inside and outside the film. I'm a Challenger's head. I love Reznor and Ross. I like Compressed for Repressed. I'm not as high on Forbidden Road as you are, and The Journey is kind of sounds like any other credit song, but I mean, I'm the Moana 2 defender here. I like Beyond. I wouldn't be mad at the nomination, but what I want to point attention to, I haven't listened to the song yet. Mufasa made the shortlist, but not for I've Always Wanted a Brother, but for a different song.
And Mufasa's missed everywhere so far. It didn't make the Hollywood Music and Media Awards, didn't make Golden Globes, didn't make Critics' Choice, but now it's here, and I think we can basically write it off. Okay, I will just push back a little bit on those Amelia Perez songs. One is really great in the movie, one is really great out of the movie. El Mal, perfect scene in the movie. Fantastic. The song on its own, a little bit less so. It's not one that I would choose to listen to on its own. Whereas Mi Camino, dog shit in the movie. That scene, terrible. Because it's a karaoke bar. You can barely even hear what they're saying. They're out of tune. It's not a good performance of the song. And then you listen to it on the soundtrack and you're like, yeah, this is great. The thing I think it's going to determine what the winner is are voters watching the movie and voting, or are they listening to the soundtrack and voting? Because if they're watching the movie and voting, it's El Mal. If they're listening to the soundtrack and voting, it's Mi Camino.
If I understand right, the portal clips when the song is in the film, and they can just watch that portion. So it would be the karaoke bar version of Mi Camino that they would listen to.
Yeah, that's not good. That's a defeat.
I would disagree. I like the karaoke bar version of it. I think it fits for what the film's trying to do.
But like, they're not even singing the tune.
Because they're drunk, they're wasted, they're partying, they're having a good time. They're back together after so many years.
It sounds awful.
You know what sounds awful is usually the makeup and hairstyling shortlist. But this year, I like our shortlisted nominees. Nothing major missed for me personally. I know there's people out there who's like, where's Furiosa? But these 10, I mean, I've seen 9 of these 10 films, but I like the makeup work in 9 of these 10 films. And the other one, I've seen stills, and it looks exactly like what this branch goes for.
This is a crazy category because we've been right all year long. They're going to do biopics. We were just wrong about which biopics. You said Maria a while ago, and I was like, why would they do Maria when they've got all these other ones? When we saw The Apprentice, we were like, oh, it's not enough makeup for them. But a complete unknown's the one. They're going to do that for sure. Nothing for a complete unknown. You know what I think we're heading towards? I think Waltzing with Brando is Golda.
I think I would agree, and that's one I want to put into my top 5, and I know which film you'll tell me to take out. I'm struggling with which film to remove because the biggest issue I think against Waltzing with Brando that Golda had for it is Golda already had some buzz. I haven't heard anything of this movie until this shortlist nomination here.
Because it wasn't supposed to release this year.
Gotcha. Okay, so I guess that changes things for me because Golda, what I had been saying all season long and why I had it in my 5 was the film came out. It made money, at least in terms of that type of film size, and the people who loved that movie. So it had all these factors for it on a very small scale basis. So if Waltzing with Brando does get released, I guess in the next week, it is, I guess, eligible here. So it could build up the momentum it needs to submit itself into the top 5, not for a win, but for that nomination.
I think that they did like a discreet qualifying run with it. Didn't show it to anyone. They just put it in a theater, hit it in LA for a week, and they plan on releasing it in like February or March. It doesn't seem like a big movie or a big release. It's just like the type of thing that they're going to show the makeup show reel, and they're gonna be like, oh my god, he looks like Brando. He doesn't sound like Brando. The movie, it looks a little I don't know, but he looks like Brando. It reminds me of like when they nominated Hitchcock, which was apparently not a very good movie, but it hit the makeup. I'm sure there's so many examples that I could draw on of movies that no one cared about that just had celebrity makeup, where all it takes is, I recognize that person. That's Brando. But to me, I think the top 3 is pretty clearly Substance, Beetlejuice, and Dune. You could argue Wicked's in there. I still think that just making her green and having some hair work, I don't know if it's enough, but I think the movie's enough to get in. But I don't think you can fit 2 horror movies in your top 5. I don't think Nosferatu can make it.
I think I would agree if I hadn't just watched the film last night, because Nosferatu is, I think, the makeup achievement of this year from watching it. But obviously, I might be in the minority there. The thing that elevates the Substance so much is the addition of the visual effects in aiding it, at least from watching a breakdown of it. Maybe Nosferatu is doing something very similar. Haven't seen a breakdown for that. But again, this could be my biasness from just watching the film like 12, 13 hours ago. It's so fresh in my head. It's so well done. Skarsgård is completely unrecognizable. If you did not know that was Bill Skarsgård, you would have no clue. I think that's what this category loves to do. It's just like, what do I take out? Substance, it made the shortlist. That was the hurdle. It's good. Dune, maybe it misses. It's shown it's weaker and stuff ahead of time, but why would it miss makeup and hairstyling? Wicked makes sense. The film's strong. It's doing what it needs to. The Guild came out in support for it. And Beetlejuice has the pedigree of the past. And that's the one that I would lean to the most to remove for Brando. But why would Beetlejuice miss when they're elevating on what they did the last time around? So for the time being, I'm going to keep Brando at 6 until, some buzz comes around. We see more. We get buzz out of the Bake Off and see how it does. Amelia Perez will be my 7, which I feel like it could easily spoil something above. Moving further down the list, A Different Man. When we both saw the movie, we're like, it's great work. Why would they care? But it made the shortlist, and I don't know, is that because of the work is speaking for itself, or the people who did the work, because the designers inside this film are branch favorites. They've been nominated multiple times before. This could lead to another nomination for them. And then, Apprentice, Maria, we both had some in the past, maybe, but we never felt really good for the nomination. But at least to me, it makes sense why they are here, more so for Maria than The Apprentice, but I'm not mad that they're here.
I guess I just can't justify having 5 special effects makeup movies as the top 5. I need something that is just a classic, just prosthetic. The Substance, Beetlejuice, Dune, Wicked, A Different Man, Nosferatu, those are all effects makeup. I want at least one in my lineup that's just making a person up a little bit differently, using a prosthetic nose, just changing their facial structure into someone that we recognize. You look at The Apprentice, you look at Maria, you look at Waltzing with Brando, all of those are doing people that someone might recognize.
I guess think about it differently. If we are both still strong on Sebastian Stan, The Apprentice makeup coming along with that would show, hey, this is kind of real.
But at the same time, you could say the same for Maria.
You could. That is a good point. But I guess, yeah.
To me, this just shows that they are showing The Apprentice to Academy voters, that they are actually doing some legwork and getting it out there. I'm discounting The Apprentice for a nomination here, but I am certainly feeling like it could be a small show of industry support around someone like Sebastian Stan or Jeremy Strong.
While we didn't really have any main issues with the makeup and hairstyling category, we're going to move over to Best Sound, where a lot of people have issues with this category because this year they went all in on blockbusters, big movies, loud movies. There's no creative type nominations here, and at least for me, it knocks out some of those type of creative nominations you could have, which makes my top 5 pretty easy. I mean, I could maybe switch out my number 5, which is currently Gladiator 2, but Dune, Emilia Perez, A Complete Unknown, Wicked, they feel pretty good.
That top 4 is locked. I want to say congratulations, Dylan. Congratulations, Joker made it.
I know. I mean, it just shows the Academy, they have taste.
Right now, I think the top 4 is really safe, really solid. Dune, Wicked, Emilia Perez, A Complete Unknown. What you do with number 5, completely up to you. But right now, I think it's between 2 or 3 here. I'm leaning towards Blitz. When I saw Blitz, all I could think about was the sound. If in the bake-off for it, when they give their presentation, if they show that first scene, that opening sequence, bombs are falling and it cuts to different objects and every object has a sound, and every time it goes to a wide shot, it's like a symphony of noise where every single thing that we've seen in close-up is making a sound, and now it's all overwhelmingly loud. That is a really compelling case. If I was just going on the movie as a whole, I probably wouldn't have Blitz in there. I would probably go with Gladiator 2. But just thinking about using a 10-minute sequence from Blitz versus any 10 minutes from Gladiator 2, I think Blitz wins that.
You know, you make a great argument there for Blitz, talking about which 10 minutes they would use. And I think Blitz, like you just said, the standout element of that movie is the sound. And I think it really just depends on what this branch loves about their sound. Do they like the loud sound? Because Blitz is the loudest movie here. I still remember watching that. And those first 10 minutes are ear-piercing, but that was the intent there. For me, while I do have Gladiator 2 in my number 2, if they are showing 10 minutes of a film, Alien Romulus makes so much sense to me. It fits into that creator nomination last year. It has guns, it has the pew pew, it has spaceship noises, it has alien noises. It fits everything, and it performed pretty well here. Sound, visual effects, score, making the shortlist for all of those. Gladiator 2 makes so much sense on paper, but if you're looking for just 10 specific minutes, I don't know what scene of Gladiator 2 they would do. I guess the boat scene, either the first one or the one inside the Coliseum, but Blitz, you have that opening scene. Romulus, you have the whole final battle, if you want to call it that, which is just a feast for the sound. And I think it's between one of those, like Joker, Deadpool, Wild Robot, happy to be here, but you're not going any further.
We have to keep in mind here that the sound branch last year went a little bit fucky with this. They put in The Creator and they put Mission Impossible. That was because of the 10 minutes thing. You show 10 minutes, what do you choose? And you have really good sequences there. I can't think of one 10-minute sequence in Joker. Deadpool and Wolverine is out. I mean, Marvel movies almost always make the shortlist, and never have made the actual nominations. Alien Romulus I haven't seen, so I can't really talk about that. But you might be right. Maybe I just don't know about a 10-minute sequence.
I guess just looking at here, if we're going for 10-minute sequences, maybe one of the music films falter. We do have 3 in our lineup there. But, I mean, as you've talked about numerous times on this channel, Emilia Perez isn't just music. There's guns. There's more stuff happening. Wicked does a lot of immersive stuff with the sound design of, and A Complete Unknown. At least for me watching this film, it's just a 2.5-hour concert. You can pick any of these scenes and you're getting the concert vibes. You feel like you're there in the front row. So I feel great about those. I'm leaning Gladiator 2 at this moment, but there's a world where I switch over to Alien Romulus. And that's to move us over to our last category of the day, Best Visual Effects. And I mean, this is one that we've had a lot of conversation back and forth on the channel about, is we have a lot of monkey movies this year. How many of them are going to make the lineup? Because we have Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Gladiator 2, Wicked, Better Man, and Mufasa, I guess, from the shortlist that all have a monkey heavily featured in some sense. And I don't really know what to do with this category because I feel great about Dune. I feel great about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and everything else, I can see a reason for it or a reason against it, besides, I guess, Civil War.
I just want to point out that we kind of have to put Deadpool and Wolverine in. The last time Marvel missed a nomination when they had an eligible movie was 2015.
And that's one of the reasons why I've had it at my 5 or 6 all year long is Marvel doesn't miss. The issue here is Deadpool, while it's technically an MCU film, it's also, in its past, hasn't been an MCU film. So, like, will this be a sign of the exception going forward? Or will it just be, hey, it's the Marvel label, it's all they're pushing? I think it would help us with our issue of too many monkeys, because it could knock out something like Better Man or something like Gladiator 2.
Also, the monkeys in Gladiator 2 look like shit. Oh, what were they thinking? What the hell? I think Gladiator 2 is pretty safe for the set extensions, for a lot of the stuff with the boats. There's a lot of work in here that is quite impressive, even though there's some stuff that's like blatantly not good. But to me, I feel good about a top 5. I would love to see something upset and to take out Gladiator 2, take out Deadpool and Wolverine, but I'm not too hot on most of the movies in here. Like, Twisters, I think, looks like mud. Better Man, I do like Better Man. I think Better Man's visual effects is really good in how it integrates the Robbie Williams monkey into the real world. Some of the long takes that they do, stitching takes together, the rock DJ scene in downtown London, that's incredible work. Alien Romulus, I could see that being this year's The Creator, or this year's Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, where what if on nomination morning we see a double nomination for Best Sound, Best Visual Effects?
That is something I'm heavily considering, but it would be much more like Mission Impossible than The Creator, because The Creator makes sense for both of those. But Mission Impossible, they went on and on about, hey, we are doing this all for real. There's not much visual effects. And Alien Romulus had a similar thing during its promotional run. It's, hey, this is all prosthetic work. We have puppets out here. And now they're probably going to come back around and be like, no, actually, we had good visual effects making the aliens look more lifelike and the sets and everything like that. So it's one I really want to put in, but it just goes back to my earlier question of what do I take out? Currently, Dune, Apes, Wicked, I have as my top 3. I guess I'm throwing Deadpool and Wolverine in there as well. And I mean, on paper, Better Man makes more sense than Gladiator 2. But if I have Gladiator 2 miss here, and if I'm taking it out of sound for Alien Romulus, Gladiator 2's only nominations would be production design and Denzel, or just production design, but films don't get nominated for just production design. Or costumes, okay, yeah, there we go. So there's at least some other nominations.
I'm counting out Mufasa. Civil War would be one of the weirdest nominations in this category. Would not make
this, but not sound.
Sense. I know. The night before Shortlists, I put it in my number 5 slot for sound because I went, well, it got the ACE nomination. I guess it would make sense to make sound. And then not even on the shortlist, but it's in visual effects. I think that they just got the wrong category.
Yeah, I wonder what would have been the other alternative here, because this was 9 of my 10, but like I had already struggled all year. Yeah, Substance was my 10, but like I had struggled all year. I was like, what would even be the shortlist? Because there is not many movies here. But yeah, Substance is one I'm shocked that it missed the shortlist in terms of if it's a real contender and it shows strength. But I guess we had this conversation every year. Just because you miss shortlist doesn't mean you're weak in other places. Each branch does their own thing, but at least to me, the visual effects are on par with the makeup work, and it's just showing here all the talk is around the makeup, and the visual effects, which is equally as impressive, is being left behind.
The visual effects does a lot, but it's not flashy work. It's all meant to be hidden. It's not meant to make you look. It's meant to make you think that it's all real. All of it is seamlessly integrated. It makes sense why it missed out. It's not Poor Things, but it's also not Everything Ever All at Once, right? Both of those were very flashy, but this one is meant to disappear. So we're not going to talk too much about shorts. I'm going to do a full video of those in early January once I've seen all 45 films. Yes, I will be watching all of them. I did it last year. I will do it this year. I will just say before we go, because I'm now friends with a member of the animation branch, I helped him watch through all of his required films. They assign 45 films to every single person. So I've seen so many animated shorts this year. So many. And when the shortlist was announced, I had already seen 11 out of the 15 here. So there's some good stuff, and I will say I don't think we're on track to another War is Over. Fortunately, I think we're not having that. We're not having another Boy, Mole, Fox, Horse. None of these nominees are like the baby short films. There's nothing here that's like totally piece of garbage. I think we're going to have a good winner this year. And my early pick would be In the Shadow of the Cypress. But again, we'll have a longer video on this once I've seen all 45 short films, so stay tuned.
And you'll also want to stay tuned because Arno is coming back to the channel and we're going to do a tier list for Best International Feature, Documentary Feature, and Animation Feature coming out within the next week, so you'll definitely want to subscribe until then. But until next time, my name's Dyl.
And my name's Matt, and this has been Fantasy Filmball.